Okay, so we're just going to get started with this. Tell us who you are.
I'm Antonio John Formaggio, the happy grandfather of all of the John Formaggio, the Elkins, the Dameron clans. And this is my beautiful wife, Catherine.
And I'm Catherine.
We're both born in 1939, in the last century. 81 years old, 60 years happily married.
All right.
Anything you want to add, honey?
My mind's a blank. Yes, I adore my grandchildren. They're just so special. We met in high school and just took a couple of dates, and we were on our way to getting married.
How old were you?
We were 15 when we met.
15 when we met.
And 17 when you proposed?
Yeah, and then 20 when we got married. We wanted to get married earlier, but her mom thought it would be best if we waited, so we waited a couple of years.
So we got married in 1960 in June 18th. He always says June 17th.
Well, that's a joke.
All right. Well, let's get on with some questions we have.
Okay.
This is just one that I've always wondered. If you were around our age again, if you were with all the experience and stuff you've been through now, what would you tell your younger self if you were our age again?
Oh, good question.
Yes, and I'm sure you have a wonderful answer. I would have to think about it.
Well, I would be, this is going to sound strange, maybe arrogant. I don't know that I would tell myself anything different, simply because there are a lot of problems with being old. Your body begins to give out. Things don't work like they should anymore. But it's more than made up by 80 years of memories. I got to see you born, Katie. I got to see Gary walk for the first time. You don't have that or know about it when you're 23 years old. I got to see your mom and dad get married in a beautiful ceremony. I got to see your uncles get married and start to have families and realize what life was like. Things that Grandma and I had painfully stumbled through, we could look backwards and help rather than forwards and help. So I know that's maybe a cop-out to not have had time to figure out what to say to you about what I tell my future self. A very optimistic person, I always have been. Always thought the future is going to be better than the past. It always has been. You look back nostalgically to the past and you say, oh, wasn't it wonderful then? No, it wasn't. It's better now than it's ever been. It's going to be better when you're 50 than it is now. It's going to be better than you're 80 when it is now.
And if you take one thing at a time, easy, and work on it together.
Yeah.
Give a little, take a little, and it gets you through a lot. I don't think I would change anything.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was a great role model and guide for me. Now that may sound strange for those of you that knew my dad and his background. You can learn as much from somebody's mistakes as you can from their successes. I chose to learn from my dad's mistakes and not duplicate his patterns. The man was married several times. He had numerous difficulties in life, caused primarily by himself, his poor choices. So I tried to learn from that, and I learned that valuing family was the most important thing, because when everything else leaves, you're experiencing the worst pandemic and economic downturn I've ever experienced in all my life.
Right.
And what's getting you through it and us through it is family. And don't ever forget that.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I talk about family a lot, and it's really important. What you guys build together with the partners that you select in the future is going to be what you guys learn to build from, and what you guys build together with your life partners and each other, because there's always the family of you and Gary. Grandma and I didn't have that, so that's one luxury you guys have that's really critical and important. I used to joke with you guys, be nice to each other, because that's who you're going to get your spare kidney from when you
Right.
need an operation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of truth to that humor.
Okay. Do you wanna?
Yes, I'm going to go off Katie's list here. I guess this is just for both of you, so you can answer however you want. What was your first job?
My first job was, Convair. It was called Convair in San Diego. Right out of high school, I applied for, oh no, I did not. I think my mother got me the job because she was working there before, so she got me the job in a library. And I worked my way up from librarian. No, it wasn't a librarian. I was just like an assistant, and I just placed books and did a lot of what they called then change administrations, which filling out forms and stuff. But I remember saying to myself that I'd like to maybe be a secretary, and that's what I studied shorthand. So I became secretary to the new chief librarian that they hired in after a year I was there, and so I was a secretary and then I was there for about 5 years, I believe.
Do you remember how much you got paid on your first job?
I think it was $1.
I know what her salary was the week we came home from our honeymoon, because that week I had passed Grandma and I made more money than she did for the first time.
Oh.
And I was so excited because
I made $1.22 an hour and she made $1.20.
And
$48.80 was my salary and $48 was hers.
and I was so excited because
you guys are married and had a house.
because I knew I didn't have to work for very long. Yeah, work for very long because my goal was to make enough money for a down payment on the house to help him get the down payment and to start our family.
Oh.
That's what we did.
Yeah, Gary's very right. With that money, we made a house payment and a car payment. That's all we had, because when we got married, we had 2 chairs and I believe a couch, a bed, and that's it.
No TV.
No TV. Grandma gave us our first small little TV. She
20
gave
inch,
us
I think it was, wasn't it? 25 inch.
something like that.
Black and white.
Probably 21.
Black and white.
Yeah, black and white. 21, I believe. 21. 25 would have been huge.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember I was so envious of later, wasn't too many years later, but Jimmy Robertson, we call him Uncle Jimmy, Linda Robertson's dad. Their family got the first color TV, and it was a 24-inch RCA Victor, and it was really something. It was just blow your mind to watch a TV set in color. Yeah, what Grandma was saying about we believed in just getting started. You had the fundamentals, like the house, and you could handle the house payment. Furniture would come along later. It was just the 2 of us. We didn't need it anyway. And as that we accumulated a little more, we got more. Just like I'm sure you guys get married, your parents are going to be fall all over themselves to
We had a
give
lot
you
of
extra stuff.
a lot of empty corners, and we didn't have a house full. But we had that. But we did get the house. We didn't rent. We didn't want to rent apartments. We got the house.
Well, that's a
And that
point
was,
of pride with me, again, learning from my dad. My folks were married for 20 years. My dad lived to be 73 years old, never owned a home in his life, rented. I said, it isn't going to happen. So, we've been blessed by God. We've never rented a day in our life. We came back from our honeymoon. We lived 6 months with
Your dad, and then 6 months.
3 months with my dad, 3 months with your mom and dad, while our house was being finished. We bought a brand new house, and then we moved into it.
Santee, California, 8809 Indian Wells Court.
Yeah,
Oh.
wow, what a memory.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember
Remember
that.
that.
That's awesome.
That was our first house.
That was a really cool little house. 3 bedroom.
What about you,
baths.
Papa? What was your first job?
My first job?
Oh yeah.
Well, my first real one was working at Convair. It was an airplane factory at the time. 1954. My dad was pretty big in the union there. He was a machinist. His brother, my uncle Jeff, was he worked in the sheet metal area, bending metal, and they worked some strings. I was 15 years old, and they got me in there as a summer hire because we'd just gotten a big airplane contract from the government, and they were building airplanes as fast as they could get them to replenish what we had in World War II, and we were just entering Korea, and we were worried that, you know, the planes we had weren't the best and we didn't have enough of them. So they were building them as fast as they could, and everybody that could do any work in the factory was being hired. And so 15, I'm working there. And my dad and my uncle, they did something devious. I didn't find out about it for years and years. They told my bosses to give me the hardest, dirtiest jobs there were because they didn't want me being happy with a factory job like they both had. They wanted me to go to college, and you know, that whole dream of when you got aunts and uncles and a dad that never finished high school, getting to college was something they considered. You got that and you got it made.
Which you did, and then you got a Convair scholarship.
Yeah.
What was your
Notre
father's highest education?
My dad got through the 7th grade. Now, I used to consider that not very much until somebody sent out a test that they gave in Salina, Kansas in 1895. And if you ever want to know what an 8th grade education in those days was worth, try and take that test. It's tough. Well, Karen's got a master's degree, and so do I, and I have difficulty with some of those questions. They are rough. So, that was my first job. It's strange, as Grandma said, you never know what that first job is going to lead to. That got me introduced to Convair. Because of that, they had a scholarship they were offering to high school kids for college. I applied for it. Actually, my dad applied for me. I won it, and that got me to Notre Dame. And when I came back from Notre Dame, they offered me a really great job working nights and going to college in the day. So I continued my education, and I continued working for them. So I had the rare luck of being going to college and working at the same time. So I actually have accomplished almost 10 years at Convair before I left to go to Rockwell, where I did 35 years working for them. So, you know, at a very early age, I accumulated a lot of years of experience with both companies, and so it really was serendipitous. It wasn't what I would have picked for myself. I love sports. I'd always thought I was going to be involved in sports somehow for my living. But once you get started in something and you're good at it, it starts to make good money for you, you can't leave. Because by that time, you know, in our case, we had 4 kids and a bigger mortgage and a bigger car payment.
Okay, so I think we're going to go with the next question. I just kind of want to go into the details of how did you meet each other? Like, I want to know, oh, look at his smile, that was cute. I want to know, like, when you guys first saw each other, if you can remember, like, the feeling of what you thought and, like, as much detail as you can about maybe the first moments of ever seeing each other or meeting each other for the first time.
Okay. Well, I didn't do a lot of dating. I went to Catholic Girls High School, and but every month they would have, in conjunction with the boys' high school, a dance. So my parents would let me go to this dance with my girlfriends, about 4 or 5 girlfriends, and we'd go and sit around the room. And I met Tony's best friend, Joe, and I dated him for a little while, and
Well,
But I went.
let me pick up the story now.
Okay.
I don't want to hog the interview, but I don't want to embarrass Grandma either. This guy Joe she was dating, who was my best friend, was what you kids today would refer to as a player. He had
Yes.
several girls simultaneously that were his girlfriends. So he comes up to me and he says, I need you to do me a favor. I said, what's that, Joe? He said, I've got this girl I've got to the dance, but there's another girl
Me.
I want to talk to and get her phone number, dance with her a little bit. So could you keep this Kathy girl busy out in the lobby of the dance till I can talk to and I don't even remember the name of the other one. And I said, sure, no problem. You know, you're going to be a wingman, you're going to help your buddy out. So I got to the lobby and he introduces me, and I'm looking at this beautiful young girl, and I'm thinking, God, this guy's, you know, he's got to be crazy. I can't imagine what the other one looks like if this is the one he's getting ready to leave. So we started talking, and the more we talked, the more I liked her, and the more I thought, Joe's got to be nuts. So when he came back to supposedly take over, I said, look, I don't know what you're doing here. I think you're a fool, but if you don't stay dating her, I'm going to get her phone number and take her out. And he said something stupid like, nah, she'll never go out with you. Not after she knows
And
me, or something like that.
I was so naive that
She
when
didn't know
that
this
transaction
happened.
happened, I didn't even know. You know, Joe went off to the other girl, and then I wasn't stuck because I looked at him, and to answer your question, this tall, you know, handsome man or boy, I should say, 15-year-old.
Italian
Uh,
boy.
An Italian boy, and one thing, he made me laugh. I had an evening out, and then that's when we started going to dances together, or we'd meet there, you know.
That's really cute. Oh my gosh. Okay. Gary, do you want to ask a question?
Sure, I'll ask this one. What historical events surprised, scared, or excited you?
Historical events
Like ones-
surprised.
Surprised,
The-
scared, or excited you?
Mm-hmm.
I can start while she's thinking about this. The one that scared me was the loss of the 3 astronauts in the Apollo fire.
Mm.
I was an integral part of the team doing the evaluation of test results. When we ran that test, there was the rapid fear of the loss of 3 great astronauts who I had met and knew, but there was also the fear that the program was going to grind to a halt because there was a lot of resistance. You know, you look back on history and you say, oh my God, who could have been against the Apollo and the shuttle programs? Well, trust me, there was a lot of politicians against both programs. They looked at them as huge wastes of money and boondoggles, and why on earth do we need to send men out in space? We've got problems here on Earth. We got homeless. We got, you know, crime. We got disease, etc. Some foresighted people thought, no, we need to, namely President Kennedy, no, we need to push the boundaries of our science, our medicine, our technology. And, you know, a lot came out of that, so it wasn't wasted money. And I've always maintained that there's a lot of misnomers that fly around, and government people who will stand up on the House of Representatives floor and the Senate and say things which were incredibly stupid. For one thing, when they talk about the waste of a government project, if you're building the elements like an airplane, and it's being built by people like yourselves, Gary, Ben, your uncles, your grandfathers, it's money spent in America. It's money that those guys spend on their families. It's money that they use to educate their children. The bullets that we use in wars to defend ourselves are made here in this country. The tanks are made in this country. The money, while spent, is like a government project, and it goes back into the population. Where you truly have waste is when you send billions of dollars to foreign governments to finance activities over there, and it goes to some strongman in Uganda, and he's buying diamonds and Swiss bank accounts and, you know, smoking $50 cigars with that money. That's wasted. Doing something in this country is not wasted, and it's part of the history of how this country got so strong. So that's what was my biggest fear, that it would cancel that program. By the way, that program led to the instrument in your hands right now, that phone, and there's more computing power in that phone than in the computers we used in the space shuttle. We had 3 computers, GPCs, general purpose computers. That little instrument has more computing power.
Wow.
What about you, Grandma?
I think I remember when I was younger seeing a lot of my uncles in uniform, and that kind of scared me because it was so different. It was sailor outfits with a white hat, and they always looked so nice, and but there was a lot of tension and crying going on. It was sad time.
Yeah, it was tough for kids. That's what Grandma and I were during World War II. We were born when it started in 1939. I was born the day before Hitler invaded Poland, and it didn't end until May of '45 when it dropped, unfortunately, to atomic bombs.
And then that reminds me of like the 9/11. When things like that happen, then it kind of brings all that back. War is.
Well, as a child and as a young person like yourselves, major events like that, like the assassination of our president, they give you fear because of the unknown. And as you get older, those same functions give you anger. Because when you're young, you're very idealistic, and as you get older, you've experienced enough that you know how things could be if they were done right. And so when they're not done right, it angers you. I think the maddest I've ever been in my life at a national event was the Oklahoma City bombing. When Timothy McVeigh killed all those people with that stupid truck bomb. I was in a Salt Lake City airport. I was flying home from a business meeting there, and I stopped into the airport just to have it was early in the morning, as you guys may remember, and I was going to have an orange juice or something or a cup of coffee, and it was on the TV, and people were stopped walking in the airport. It got very, very quiet, and everybody's heads looked up to the cameras. And I remember the anger that rose through my body when they began to discuss the 100-something children that were in the nursery that he killed. And I felt so sorry having young kids and young grandkids at home to think that some poor mom, working mom, drove her kid to that daycare, took the child in there, hugged it, turned it over to somebody, got in their car, drove away to never see that child again because some madman wanted to make a statement that he thought that was the only way he could accomplish it.
And we were children of the Depression. Even though we were only 3 years old when it was over, we lived through it through our parents because they were devastated. The fact their parents and their parents' parents, and so we were brought up with that in mind that things are worth having, and you don't need. If you don't need it, you don't buy it. If it's
well, it shaped our whole lives, and it probably shapes our lives till today. You can't help but grow up and be reminded of how little your parents and grandparents had, and how lucky you were. It made you appreciative, but at the same time, it made you feel guilty if you began to be successful. There's a real paradox that it's a thing we have to learn to live with, and you guys have to learn to live with the opposite, having for the first time now experienced something close to a national disaster. You haven't had economic upheaval. You guys grew up and you never had to worry about money. Your parents weren't telling you were on the verge of losing the house, or dad was on the verge of losing his job, or your mom. So there's a blessing to everything, and a part that you have to keep in mind to everything, so that you don't let it affect you.
Yeah, and our parents did the best they could to try to teach us for our future too. They didn't know what our future was going to be like, but
Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up right now, so thank you
Okay.
very
Thank
much.
you,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
We
That was
love
great.
you.
we love you too.
Love you guys, and thanks for putting this on tape. We
Yeah.
probably have meant to do something like this for a long time, and maybe this will help your kids and grandkids someday, and
Oh yeah.
give them a good laugh if
Very
nothing
good.
else.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Thank you guys.
Yes, love you.